Dangin Nira. Dan am lesin uframevna. Ebsorva. Lesson 25. Colors. Some of the most commonly used adjectives in a language are colors. Color, for those of us with sight, is one of the main ways we distinguish objects and describe them to others. So it's about time you learned the color words of Dangin Nira. The basic color words are Mefin, red; Pabdin, orange; Birin, yellow; Irotin, green; Nuwtonin, cyan; Furegin, blue; Wonin, violet; Lilin, pink; Oshin, white; Harblin, black; Maldrin, brown. Be aware that Furegin means only what we'd consider in English to be dark blue. Light blue is generally covered by Nuwtonin. As an example, defining Luda as sky, Tangin folma nen Luda muhuk yordal morg Nuwtonin, zov doid vtovin nen loma balsiolurretek, nen Luda muhuk Furegin, or talorm Harblin tangnen madza. During the day, the sky is usually cyan, but just after the sun sets, the sky is blue, and then black during the night. Notice the idiom nen loma balsiolurretek. In Dangin Nira, you say that the sun goes to sleep instead of saying that the sun sets. The word for color itself is sorva. Now that you've learned your color words, we need to tackle the grammatical concept of comparison. By its nature, comparison requires two participants to compare to one another, and in Dangin Nira, comparative phrases are made of two parts. To say that something is more than something else, you must use the words Dadu and Oski, more and than, respectively. Dadu is followed by an adjective, an adverb, a verb, or a partitive noun phrase, and Oski is followed by either a nominative noun phrase or by a different phrase of the same part of speech as the first phrase. For examples, Yetamin Syria muhuk Dadu Birin Oski tamin Syria. This flower is more yellow than that flower. Sin losos makelok Dadu mamor Oski sin losorsa. My daughter is running faster than my son. Nenskasin pukna Dadu ekrok Oski nen mororin pukna. The happy cat is eating more than the sad cat. Hastitos Dadu sotlaska Oski nen woswa. I want more cookies than the ghost. Note that this last one takes a very different meaning if the second part is also partitive. Hastitos Dadu sotlaska Oski sot woswa. I want more cookies than ghosts. That is, the speaker wants to have a greater amount of cookies compared to his amount of ghosts. Valos Dadu ekroi Oski deloi. I love to eat more than I drink. Nen humnaka mekiok moi Dadu Irotin Oski Furegin. The house needs to be more green than blue. To indicate a lesser amount of something, you need to pair the word Ofedu, less, with Oski. This works in exactly the same way as the previous construction. For example, En risa muhuk Ofedu manwin Oski Pabdin volosma. The man is less tall than his girlfriend. Ofedu also translates as fewer. For example, Nen selfa ati nenab granadra meglok Ofedu sodakra Oski nen selfa yedunen vodera. The city in the mountains has fewer people than the city by the ocean. Finally, you often want to equate two objects in terms of a property. For this you need fui, as. It replaces both Dadu or Ofedu and Oski. For examples, En risa muhuk fui manwin fui patin valosma. The man is as tall as his girlfriend. Sin lo sosma kelok fui mamor fui sin lo sorsa. My daughter is running as fast as my son. Nen skasin pukna fui ekrok fui nen mororin pukna. The happy cat is eating as much as the sad cat. Nen selfa atin nen abgranadra meglok fui sotdakra fui nen selfa yedonen vodera. The city in the mountains has as many people as the city by the ocean. Valos fui ekroi fui deloi. I love to eat as much as I like to drink. Sometimes Dadu and Ofedu can be used on their own. For example, Hastitos dukloi Dadu maminu bande. I want to buy a faster car. Note that in this case, you will have to decline the compared adjective properly. Similar to the comparative is the superlative, which indicates that an object is the greatest or least with regards to some property. For this, you need studadu, most, or stulofedu, least. And unlike the comparative, only one object is required. For examples, Zephinos nen studadu tupinu humnake oli nen selfa. I live in the biggest house in the city. Tastamok nen stulofedu skasin hebrisa este vullor mi piretes. That is the least happy boy I have ever interacted with. You may remember the words kend, very, and rand, not very, but they also each have two other forms. They each have a more intense form, Stukend, extremely, and Sturand, not at all, and also an excessive form, Torskend, too much, and Torsrand, too little. For examples, Yetamin fisra muhuk Torskend manuin. This tree is too tall. Nen haken takra molok Torsrand mamin. The warrior wasn't fast enough. Finally, it's time to introduce the final correlative suffix, zo. Correlatives with this suffix indicate an extent of an adjective or verb. So we'd have ezo, to what extent? Tazo, to that extent. Vuzo, to any extent. Wedzo, to some extent, and so on. For example, Hastitos kun golle, amamuhuk yetazo tupin, or degzo dadu tupin. I want a rock which is this big and no bigger. Note that there is an implied Oski tama at the end of the sentence that need not be said. This is also used in contexts where you want to say that this was so big that. An example would be, En risa molok tazo mamin kit degsta vullorm pisrelte tekke. The man was so fast that no one ever saw him. So you've learned how to talk about colors, how to compare two things, how to talk about excess, and you learned about the final correlative suffix zo. Make sure you know these new words before moving on to the next video.